All right, and we're live.
Hey everybody, Scott O Green here from I'd Rather Be Drawing. I'm here with our fellow I'd Rather Be Drawing artist, David Fleming, and we're here for our art checkup with each other. I'd Rather Be Motivated. What episode is this?
15, I believe.
15, all right. I love it. Every week we've been able to get this going for a while now. We weren't able to get together Sunday, so here we are on Tuesday night making it happen. When I'm not here on YouTube, you can find me on Instagram or on Facebook at I'd Rather Be Drawing, and then on Instagram at mr.scott. I forgot all my stuff tonight. Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. David, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Art of Mr. Fleming and on Facebook at Mr. David Fleming. Links in my bios are always in my link tree, which will also bring you to my shop and the YouTube channel.
All right. Well, you are obviously off to a better start with the words. So I'm going to turn it over to you for our art check-in portion of the show. First of all, since we talked last, it's been a little bit over a week, but what progress have you made?
So progress, yeah, man, let's talk about it. So Inktober is in full swing. I am always, and hopefully will always, sort of be a huge participator in this. The very first time I ever sort of found out that my media of choice is ink was because of Inktober. I remember I was sort of fresh out of college trying to figure out what the heck do I want to draw now that I know that I love drawing and have all this kind of thing and energy behind this. And then found out about Inktober and was like, well, that's a really cool thing, and picked up some pens and never looked back. So yeah, this is my 4th year doing it. I am this year, which is actually, this is also another really cool thing, because the very first year I ever did Inktober, I did every other day, and the next one I did every day, but I've always just done sketches or followed the prompts or, just whatever, kind of just had fun drawing. But I was always really jealous of other people who had like a cool spin on Inktober. Like they weren't just drawing the prompts or whatever. They were like, every day will be a different character and it will make a big giant string of characters, like that kind of stuff. I love that. Like Jake Parker always does that thing where it's like he makes like a print out of the whole thing. So I am posting the pages of my comic every day. I'm posting like scenes / like pieces of it, and then like every few days a whole page goes up. And then every 3rd day I post a character that I have made or created that is like belongs to the world of that the comic is in. So I'm on day 8, correct? Yeah, day 9. Yes, day 9. And I'm kind of just doing the rough pencils for the character that I will post. So tomorrow I post a character that I just finished up. And then the next day I will start posting a page that I'm actually really excited to start drawing, of like a big like spread of characters like rushing across the page. So it's going to be like a super fun thing, because it's going to be a whole bunch of weird, obscure robots like charging into battle, basically.
I can't wait to see that. Did you already say the name of it? I'm sorry.
Do what?
Did you already say the name of your comic?
No, I have not yet. Analog Missions. My comic is named Analog Missions, and it is.
I'm a sucker for a good title, and I love that title.
Yeah, so this happened through just one of our talks, and I like the main character's name was Apollo, and then like that was not any kind of real reference or anything, but you caught onto the reference that was like the space shuttle, like NASA thing. And so there's a lot of fun little references to that. What I do sometimes to make up a character's name is I'll look up the name of like a satellite or something, and then like that becomes their name. Like I find a cool name of a satellite or like a mission or whatever. And Analog Missions is actually the name of like some mission that we had of like sending up some kind of informational satellite or something like that.
And you're a big Planet of the Apes fan, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So that's a cool little ode to that, even.
Actually, now that you say that, that's super funny. I think I will have multiple odes to that, not even on purpose.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to tell you. I'm just going to interject real quick. When I got back from Kansas City and we were in Seattle, I went to the Flight Museum, which they have more like a trainer space shuttle there that you could go stand inside of and see what it's like to have the bay doors like all big and open, and had a whole NASA exhibit. I think you would really, really enjoy. So
yeah, that sounds super cool.
If you come for Emerald City Comic Con sometime, we'll go do that as well. You'd love it. I mean, you get to walk around jets too. You get to go get like on the Concorde and So I mean, so much like photo reference. If you're doing any sort of machinery stuff or this or that, you're like walking up to the engines and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that is really cool. Yeah,
anyway.
I'm trying to collect, like, kind of trying to grow my bank account of like just machinery and robotic stuff and all that kind of, because that's a kind of a newer thing for me too. Like I realized last year that I love to draw that, like my sort of what I'm drawing when I'm not just drawing a character or whatever, always turns into something like machinery and robotic. And then I realized I don't have a very big bank account when it comes to that. So like that's been a cool thing this month too. Like I have a giant folder now on my phone of screenshots of just basically any time that I find any kind of reference of like robotic machinery that I love, I screenshot and I throw it into that folder. And it's like the folder that I open up whenever I'm like making a new design or something. Hold on one second. I might get some shake. I just realized I didn't have my computer plugged in. Oh, cord in the way.
No worries. You know, I've since I got done with the 100s, I've been thinking a bit more again on what I want to start really kind of doing for videos. And I like the idea, like Jan Git does the Sketchalona, where he's a person living in Barcelona, so he'll walk around and kind of show you bits of the city and then, draw sites or this or that. But thought like mixing something like that in it and then just going around and people always seem like one of the biggest problems is I just don't know what to draw. I don't sit down and draw. Yeah, but what do I draw? But it's fun going around and finding all these different cool things out here and exploring around for the first time. I thought it could be sort of centered around a travel show with like drawing prompts. So like at different times in it, like do like a freeze frame and then be like pause it here and draw this and like set up a still or something interesting or a guy playing a one-man band thing, and then take a photo of it like still and then be like draw that, like a writing prompt, travel art channel thing or drawing prompt thing. But I don't know.
No idea.
Anyway, help people fill their creative bank accounts. I was sort of thinking with that.
Yeah. I feel like lately, like we obviously both definitely listened to that podcast, that Viewpoint Perspective podcast. I've like heard that term before used in like a different way, but that was probably one of the best ways I've ever heard it explained. And I love that idea that like you need to give yourself new experiences and like sort of build up a reference. Because it's like, it's not like it's a new thing for me, but it's a new thing to like give a name to, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But I am just like, I'm going full force in terms of that concept of just like in my brain, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stare at that image now. Like I see a really cool image of something and I'll stop and I'll just like stare at it and I'll really start studying it and be like, okay, the way that they drew that wire is like they use this repetition of certain kind of like line work or something. I'll like stick it in my brain and like just stare and stare and stare. Like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Or I'll draw it for a second, And then it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. And then like the next time I'm drawing a robot, I'm like, well, I want wires to stick out right here. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll draw it that way that I just found because I love that, like that kind of thing. Like I feel like I'm doing a really good job of that lately.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed looking at your Inktober so far, man. Your enthusiasm with turning it into a comic and having a whole project behind it instead of like just drawings and everything. It's really showing through, and then the quality as well. It's really awesome, man.
Yeah, man. To say one more thing, and then I'll give it over to you because I don't want to steal the show. And you can obviously
no, please go ahead.
You can obviously tell that I'm excited about this. I'm in a really good spot and just general with my art. Using screen tones, man. First time I ever used them, I was like, "Where have you been all my life?" Like, the last time I had this feeling was my first Inktober, where I was like, "Ink, what is this thing that I've never used? This is the best." Like, I'm having that feeling all over again with this, like playing with these screen tones. It's like, oh my gosh, I had this critique in college, and this obviously stuck with me because for some reason I still have this memory. And I remember it was a painting class, and the way I see shadows is in shapes. Like I see the shape and where it ends and where it stops and that kind of thing. And I remember that I did this painting, and the person was like, "This is really good if painting was about shapes, but you didn't like." It was like I didn't blend any of my shadows together. If that it was all hard edged and stuff,
Yeah.
They were like, just need to find this media that like lets you work this way because it's obviously the way your brain thinks. And like that's the screen tones are literally just like laying down a sheet of paper and then like cutting out the shape that you see into a shadow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and it was like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that person told me I needed to find.
Well, plus it's working out cool, and it doesn't have like a retro comic look like you might think with the dotted pattern. It doesn't come off as that. It definitely has like a newer spin to it, something fresh with how you're using it. But like with whole analog missions being this weird sci-fi thing, but analog, I don't know. It's like you're seeing your like title and concept and execution and everything tying into each other, which is cool. Which that's the whole idea of your style or whatever you're doing should like serve the story,
Right.
not just the way, you know, maybe if you were doing another one that's an ocean thing, you wouldn't be using the dots and you'd be using watercolor or, you know, ink tones or something, ink washes. I don't know, but it's really coming off nicely. Whatever's going on here, it's coming off as a well-rounded concept.
Well, thanks, man. That I do appreciate hearing that, because sometimes I feel like I get into a zone and I'm so like blinded by stoke that I never really do take the opinions of other people. And you know what I mean? You get so it's like, I don't even care what you say. I love this.
Well, if you ever need to like send over any, because I don't know the story and I don't know the relationship with any of the pictures I'm seeing. So if you ever want an eye view, because it is weird sometimes to see it through another lens.
Right.
So if you ever like, you know, what are you seeing through this action, or, you know, if you need an eye like that or something, just holla.
Oh, I will haul.
So progress. I finished my 100 days of making comics. That was fun. I should have. I am making. It's just turning into one of those things that won't last too much longer. But my 100th day video and everything, and kind of ended it. But wanted to do, like, I did an intro here on YouTube, and didn't do as many videos on YouTube as I wanted to. I didn't want it cluttered, but IGTV was just really useful, as well as Facebook. So I want to do kind of a wrap up of it and everything, and has some old footage and everything. So still making that video, just kind of a goofy, maybe hint towards that video line I was talking about before. I'll probably talk about with using as a travel drawing prompt art show. But so I did finish that. With that, the last thing that I was kind of really pushing strong on was writing the script on Inktober, which I don't know if you got to see this, David, but my mom made this and gave it to me when I was in town.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I literally, like, I laughed so hard, like, not in a good way. Like, I saw your post about that and I was like, oh my gosh, that was that thing you were talking about.
Isn't that great, dude? But anyway, so I'm actually in talks with my mother on production of making a sort of bigger teddy bear sort of a thing, and that was kind of a surprise when I got there that she showed me that. So excited to kind of work with mom on a project, you know, and see what we can make as far as that goes. But anyway, that's what I was pushing strong on in the end of my 100s, and I didn't want to take a break or stop after the 100s, so I didn't really celebrate too much that, well, I'm done, I accomplished something huge, because I thought, you know, if I did that, I might want to sit back on my heels. But I did give myself a little bit of a break from social media and, you know, the daily posting and videos. I backed off just a little bit. And I kind of set the script down a little bit, which I don't think is a terrible thing. It's like I wrote through the whole thing through once, and I kind of let it sit for a week or so, and then I'll go back and start reading it and pulling out the pages and thumbnailing and everything. So still going strong on that, but I didn't want to rock back on my heels too much. So I've been working on this guy here. I'll get the video screen share thing worked out someday, but this is my kind of Inktober project, which I'm definitely a bit more relaxed on this Inktober than last ones. I've several times now completed it by doing like the drawing every day. Last year even really kind of tried to make like a finished illustration every day with it, and did. So especially since I was wrapping up my 100s, I wanted to relax a little bit. So anyway, this is Mr. Green's Monster Zine, a zine that I made also throughout the course of my 100s. Finished production on that. Still waiting to get the final stock in the mail and everything. But something that I actually wanted to do a while back was make a print along with this of all of the monsters together. Now, this whole idea is 100% inspired by, ripped off, whatever, Jake Parker from last year. Last year, I did use Inktober to ink my last comic book, so kind of made it to fit my own thing. But his way, he actually, and I think is doing the same thing this year, he started off making, like, he drew this print first, and then would have like a very short, like just a couple sentences to go along with it. And then didn't have a comic or anything with it, but just kind of made a big print with like a map along with like where they're all from, and a cool little product and everything. So I made this first, then I'm going to make this with all of them on it. But mine had like a bit longer stories for each of them, so there's a bit of reading with it. But what I'm thinking is after I finish this for Inktober, because that's kind of my idea. I'm working on a couple other things as well, but my goal with Inktober is to finish this print, this drawing with all of them in it and looking nice and inked up and looking sharp. But I think I'd like to do something where once I have this done and I have these back, do some sort of a product where you buy these things together. So instead of, you could buy this or both or whatever, do a thing where like this come, you know, maybe a rolled up tube or something with the print in it. I'm not exactly sure as far as that goes. But yeah, trying to think of how to release that as a product where it's, instead of just selling a comic for $2 or something, maybe I could sell it as a combo for $10 or $15, you know. But yeah, that's my progress.
Cool. All right, what's next?
Problems. What problems have you encountered?
Problems. I would say problems being like a thing that hasn't really necessarily happened yet, but I definitely expect to happen. Time, man. I definitely have bitten off a pretty big project here. So far, I'm doing pretty well with it, but I'm definitely juggling. We'll see what happens next time we meet up, if it's hit me yet. But it's just like some panels are like very ambiguous, and some panels are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll whip that up real quick. And then because I've been working my butt off the rest of the week too, sometimes it's like I should be working ahead or whatever, but then I don't, like that kind of thing. So
yeah, it can cause some anxiety during those art challenges for sure.
Yeah.
And keep plugging away.
And like really, like that's, I'd say that's like in terms of problems, I'm hoping not to hit too many. I mean, you always will, but like I really do have mostly positives, so that's pretty cool.
Cool. My biggest problem is something that we were actually talking about just a little bit before the show started, which is a critique I've had a few times about my anatomy. Even when you mess with anatomy or change it, I don't know, with anything, when you break the rules in music or whatever, you really kind of have to like learn the basics first. And I've learned those, and it's been a long time, and I've done live model drawing, but I haven't really put in the time and effort in a long time. I just sort of start drawing and make it work. Finally get a reference if I need one, but kind of draw from my head a lot, which is a lot of fun. I come up with cool stuff here and there. But it just is evident when I'm doing like drawing like this print here, where I have all these characters, but now I'm showing more of them than I did before, and they're in a different position than they were before, which is a fun challenge to like take a character that you made and now draw that character a second time. But with just simple twists and turns and just different angles, it can just, something can come out of my head and just flow really quickly, and then I move on, which is fine. And sometimes it's just a big blue smudge. I use a blue pencil, and just a big blue smudge of erase, because it just takes me a while to finally get to it. I eventually do, which it's nice to like kind of have that confidence of just be patient, you'll get what you need. But if I really just put in the time and effort to study anatomy a bit more, which I need to, and that is a critique I've had politely and nicely from, you know, a few people, which, yeah, I totally agree with, and I just need to make the time. But I always kind of get into these, not always, but I have been getting into all these projects, and I have these ideas where I'm like, I feel like I'm good enough to do this idea in this project, and I want to always be getting better. But I just find myself bulldozing on these projects, and I really sort of need to sit back at times or take breaks to just be a student. Learn by doing is great, but sometimes you really just, got to go back to school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, learn by doing doesn't necessarily not apply either, though. Like, that's the point. Like, you need to do more of just a different thing.
For sure, yeah. And like, there's a lot of avenues to do that. Anybody out there, if you have like the same issues and you need to work on your anatomy, David, if you can, while I'm saying this thing, grab that anatomy book that you showed me a little bit ago.
Oh, yeah.
But there's live model drawing that's everywhere you are. You can go sit at a coffee shop and sketch people as they hang out and sit there. People will not move for a really long time when they're at coffee shops, so you can draw them. If you live with other people, animals, whatever, draw what you have around. And there is a lot of, use reference things online. There is cooler stuff. David, what's a posing website? I'm sure you know offhand.
I can't pull one offhand because I have mine bookmarked and I haven't used it in a while because of this book.
Gotcha. But, well, no, there's better stuff online. Like sometimes just reference photos. It can give you an idea of what something's supposed to look like, but it is just a two-dimensional representation. And when you're learning figure, it's good to like learn the whole thing and see it. But there's better apps and things online for even that as well to kind of show you that lighting and stuff better. But David, show us that book because you showed it to me just before this, and I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, so Anatomy in Action is what it's called. It's by the Masters of Anatomy. So if you Google this or whatever, it'll pull up their website. But they do a bunch of really cool stuff. This is book 2 in their series. But basically, it's like a bunch of just really generic poses, and it's mostly the gestures. Like you get a cleaned up shot every once in a while, which I do love because. But the way that this person does his mark making with his muscle stuff is like all about the muscle structure. So you're kind of just placing things where you need to go. And then after that, you're like, you can put your own thing on it. So even like what I'm working on right now is a pose from this book, and then I'm going to turn them into my own like little robot thing. But it's super cool because it's literally just like, it's just like pages and pages of just like dude coming at you, like girl, big buff guy, skinny guy, like jumping up with his fists up in the air. Like there's a bunch of really cool poses, and they're all like super dynamic and awesome. And like, as you can see, like, I mean, this is what I love the most is just these little guys here. That thing he was talking about of just the like working out like muscles and kind of knowing a thing and just getting a quick gesture and then going from there. Like that's like how you build your own characters and your own stuff from scratch, is just like having that basic knowledge of anatomy and then being able to just warp it just ever so slightly.
Yeah, because like what we talked about is it's not just important to know that, head here, neck here, shoulder here, and like connect the dots or whatnot, but know that when someone's moving this way, what muscles are contracting to make that possible, and having that idea. So when you do distort the figure, you're still like connecting the dots to the correct areas, and things are flexing when they need to flex, and things like that. But yeah, so that's been a problem, just me having not put in that time before. Some of my drawings take longer than they should because I start to draw from my head and it doesn't always work out. So, yeah.
And like, I mean, we're all guilty of that, but I mean, it's a real thing where you don't really ever realize it until it's too late. And then you're like, oh man, I did just kind of make up that shape, didn't I?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works out and you get really kind of cool lines, like cartoonist lines. Like you feel like, wow, I boiled that whole gesture down to just sort of this mark, and that kind of works great. So there are pretty cool serendipity things and things that happen and style choices that emerge when you do sort of just pick it out of your head. But it doesn't need to be out of your head. Reference is great. I use reference all the time. I was going to say this, Neil Adams, if you don't know who that is, go look it up because he's awesome, and he's been around a while making beautiful comic art. And when I got a chance to see him and walk up to him, I said, any advice for a young artist trying to get better? And obviously he's gotten that question a million times. And he said 3 things without looking up. He said, number 1, trace photos. Trace photos and trace photos. And everyone I've said that to cringes in the same way that I think I sort of cringed when he first said that. Like, what? Trace? Trace photos? They didn't talk about that in art class. And when he explained the idea of, and he, go talk to him at a Comic-Con, he's at a lot of them, and he'll say it better. But it just gives you a real idea for what something really looks like on the page when they're moving in a particular way. And one of the ideas being reference, especially through photography or whatever, has been used as long has been used by major artists as long as, you know, photography has been around. Artists would trace on windows to like get the proportions of things. They'd have models sit still for hours and days and months to be able to get that reference. So the idea that things need to come from your head or you're not a real artist is ridiculous. And tracing photos is fine, and you've got a photo album at home, I'm sure. Or not, I don't know. This is 2018. Maybe people don't have photo albums. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. But
to go off of that, yeah, I second that. When I first started inking, that's what I literally would do. I would take photos of artists that I loved, or like of drawings that I loved, or like if there was a line or there was a specific chunk or even the whole thing that I was super into. I would take it, put it into Photoshop, drop the opacity of 50%, print it back off so it was like a green, like light line, and then I would literally just sit there with my ink pen and I would trace over all of it. And that's like how I learned a lot of the like shortcuts and lines and things that I like to put into my work now.
Which is awesome. That's how people like learn to play rock and roll. They just put on their favorite CD and turn it down and try to play along with it as best they can. So anyway, so what are your plans for the next week? I bet I know.
Yeah, continue to Inktober it up, kill it until it can't be killed anymore, you know?
Beat it to death.
Yeah, pretty much so. Like that's real. Like I'm just, yeah, I'm just in a good zone. I've said it already, so I'm trying to think of a way to say it without just saying it all over again to do this.
No, but, man, I love your enthusiasm. Like I said, like art and comics and story and movies that I get the most excited about is when it's clear to see that it's something that the people creating it are excited about. That's why I love so many books through Image.
Yeah.
Because it seems like those are really ones where people are labors of love and really putting everything they have into it. Rao, that's why I've like really loved the art and story stuff that he's been doing lately. Chris Rao, R-A-U, search that. Everyone, search that. But anyway, he's obviously really enjoying things that he's doing and getting into ink and stuff, which has been exciting to see. But yeah, you can tell that you're excited, and it is showing in your artwork, and yeah, it's cool to be excited.
Yeah. Oh, I guess so. If I really laid it out too, so plans would be. So I haven't actually done the math. Well, let's see, a page every 2 days, 30, 15. Yeah, like, so if I do the math quickly in my head, I think but I really want to be done with somewhere between the 8th and the 10th page in my comic by the end of the month. And so that's about 2 pages a week. And so far, I'm on that flow.
Loving it. So is that your plans? Inktober it up, make a comic book?
Yeah, just like can't stop the momentum. Just keep making. And like the thing I'm doing here with like the characters in between has been really helpful, because sometimes like even like this one, I don't really know how much this guy might fit into the world. I'm kind of getting just really weird with it, just because this pose I started with was a little wonky. But like sometimes I'll do a thing and I'm like, well, that was fun, but things like that don't belong in my world. Like that was a good little character, but I'll do something different if I draw him again. Like that, like it's been fun doing the character in between, because it's like I don't do like I never have been. Maybe someday I will be, but I'm not the kind of artist that can like do a character and do turns of his head and like you know what I'm saying. Like I don't do a character design by like doing a character sheet, which it's probably horrible, and I probably like really should learn that. But like I think of a certain character, I think of him in a certain pose, like doing a certain thing, because it's like I'm much more of like my mind thinks much more like an illustrator, and I go from there. And so I sort of, a lot of the characters are like ideas in my head or someone I might have drawn before in the sketchbook or something, and then they usually come to life just straight up on the page. Like a lot of times, the first time I've drawn a character for like good, like for like this is the final character, is just on the page he ends up appearing on.
That makes sense. I think I do that oftentimes too. I do a sketch in a sketchbook, and I like how the character turned out, so I draw him again in something else. I mean, that's specifically how I got characters for Inktober. Was I made this thing, and then certain characters I thought would be a good fit in that world, and just took them right from here to that. So
Yeah.
I do think, you know, for different, you know, as we progress and keep making more comics and keep making more comics, I think that it's only inevitable that that will change a little bit because we'll be better at it, along with that feeling of things not being as precious because you realize, oh, that's a cool design. I wonder if I can tweak it a little bit more, you know, even if it goes back to the original, just like writing stories and stuff. But I don't see anything wrong with, you know, jumping in.
Yeah, it's been super fun. So how about you? Now that you've finished the project and you're kind of in that in between kind of awkward stage of like, don't stop now, but what do I do next? What are your plans?
Yeah, there's definitely not a problem with what do I do next, which is good. I think I kind of touched on this before, but was even like a little bit, and tonight I'm just sort of tired, so I hope that's not coming off as like anything weird, but I was a little bit down as my 100 days was wrapping up. I think I just really wanted to be a lot further along than I was, and then was like a little bit bummed that it was just like, oh, it's my 100th day and I got to go to work and it's just another day or whatnot. But then I sort of turned that around and I kind of was thinking that if I got done with that 100 days, which I've done with like Inktober and things in the past where it gets done, you're like, oh, right, I just accomplished something. Now I'm going to sit back and relax a little bit. And then all of a sudden a week goes by or 2 weeks and you haven't really done a whole lot since. And all that momentum that you had, which is really what you were trying to do, is build up momentum for learning and art and creation and all this kind of just comes to a stop. So instead of sitting back and reflecting on how great it was that I just did this 100 days, I felt unfulfilled because I just kept wanting to make comics. And having multiple projects, it's a little stressful sometimes, but I did set the October thing down just a little bit, like I said, and separate myself from the story, which I don't think is a bad thing. I've heard of people like writing the first draft of their novel and then like locking it in a drawer for like a month and then coming back to it with fresh eyes. I'm not trying to like do anything like quite like that, but it just felt okay to like set that down for a little bit, especially to have a little bit of Inktober fun. I've been doing a lot of writing, so I wanted to draw, which is another thing too to keep momentum going, is keep doing things that you love doing. I'd rather be drawing. So even if you're doing that for other stuff, just keep that going. Sorry, kind of blabbing a little bit. So anyway, so just rocking forward. I've been drawing and working on my comic at least a half hour every day since that. So it's been 100 and whatever days at this point. I'm not doing the video every day. I didn't want to like call it a thing and roll into like, well, I'll just do 200 days or this or that, because I really didn't want to keep doing the videos every day. But I do enjoy doing the videos, and it does kind of give you some accountability, some extra accountability, just like this one. So I do want to keep that momentum going with like still making content for the channel and all that. But yeah, I feel like I can't lose momentum. Like it's almost impossible because there's just too much to do, which is almost overwhelming. But I just have a lot of ideas, and I want to do them all like right now. But I got to have a little bit of patience, or else it kind of gets me tied up in knots. So plans for next week. I don't know. I just be further along. I'm trying to just kind of enjoy the making of this for Inktober. I am really enjoying fitting everybody in and seeing how that goes. I'm just kind of doing the line work at first, so to not stress, but just get that done. And then once I get them all on the page, finish it up. But just keep rocking on this. I've been working with my buddy Dirk on the website for indiegutter.com. I don't want to say too much about it until we have more for it. And honestly, it's going to be a few month project at least. But he's kind of given me ideas on where to at least start. So he's said start getting some art together. So I'm working on a logo, trying to get that going. So I'm going to have that sort of tagline made by the next time we talk, and more characters put on this sheet. I think that's pretty realistic for right now. I think probably next Monday I'm going to jump back into October vibe.
Nice.
Yeah. Those are my plans. But that was kind of jumping into a little bit of a topic that we talked about. We don't have a bunch of time because we've been talking for a while, which I like to do. But how do you approach, like when you get to the end of Inktober and you're hoping to have so many pages of your comic done, but not necessarily the comic done. How do you get to the end of a feat like that where it is exhausting to like make a thing and post a thing every day and keep your momentum going?
So I don't know if this is a good answer or anything, but I let myself take a little bit of a break. If I like, I do some things to just stress relieve and to unwind. Like I will probably, I don't know, like I'll make some time for some skateboarding. I'll make some time for some video games. I'll maybe pick up a new show that I told myself I wasn't gonna watch. I kind of reward myself, is that, like, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of like there are things, and it's like not in like a bad way, that I would be doing too besides drawing, but I have to, like, knowing my passion and knowing how to, that I have to like make sacrifices. I'm not allowed to watch a show this month. I'm not allowed to, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not allowed to play that game that I just bought, but as soon as I hit my goal, I am gonna play the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So I reward myself a little bit, but like that goes only so far, if that makes sense, because you do have to be able to like reel that back in.
Do you put like a time limit on it or anything? Like say, all right, yeah, I'm going to reward myself. I'll have a weekend to myself or anything like that.
That is usually what it is. It's like I get this much, X amount of time, or so for me, like, you know, this here's like a little thing. So if you've never done this with your life and you have a passion that you're trying to pursue or whatever, this is like 101 of like time management. You take, like, you go through your day with a piece of paper or a text or whatever you're going to do next to your phone. And every time you do a thing, like, you time yourself, or you just write it down. Like, hey, you know what? I got home from work at 3:10. I actually just messed around on my phone until 4 o'clock. I wasted 50 minutes just doing whatever, or, you know, that kind of thing. And then at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, you lay this out and you can realize basically how much extra time in your life you really have. Like, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I would totally make my comic if I had more time. And you're like, well, you do. Like, one less sitting on the couch and Netflix and 30 less minutes scrolling through your feed, and you have time to make like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I have certain times in my day. I have my morning. I get up an hour earlier than most people to sort of get work done at work, so I don't ever have to stay after, or so that if I am done with my work, I can draw. So a lot of times I get about an hour in before school starts to just draw at my desk. I'll tell myself, like, next week, one of these free hours I have in my day, I don't have to draw. I get to watch I get to watch a show, I get to play a game. I get to come home from work, and instead of getting right back into drawing, I can do X or whatever. So that's how I kind of, it's like almost like I have 3 times every day, more or less, that I get to touch the drawing, like for an hour here, hour there, or there. So I decide that one of those hours doesn't have to be drawing once I've hit a goal or something like that. I get to unwind and relax a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, that I should have done that a little bit more when I did get done with my 100s. I got down and then I turned around and like, no, just more motivation, which is good. But I do think I should have taken the time to like just sit back, and which I think the video will, like, making the video will kind of be a catharsis and go, okay, yeah, I did accomplish something. Maybe I'll go out for a milkshake or something that day when I release that video. Maybe then it'll actually kind of feel like it's done or something. But I do think that's a good idea, to a reward. But obviously be educated about it and don't, oh, I'll go play video games for 15 minutes because I drew for 15 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really. There is definitely a way to misuse that or abuse that and sort of miss the entire point. But there is definitely something to be said about if you're not careful with your productivity, that's how you burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not in any good spot to like push yourself so hard that you kind of almost hate the project.
Yeah. I don't think it's burnout I'm worried about. It's just, I don't know, maybe I should be more worried about it. I think it's just, I don't know. I've been, in my past, I was very unmotivated. Like, if I didn't have something that like I really cared about, then like I just didn't care.
Right.
So I think sometimes like I'm afraid I'm going to slip back into, who cares about drawing or something like that. I don't know what my fear is there, but I don't know. Like, I don't worry about burnout. I think that's one reason, for good and bad, why I always keep like Not like I try to do it. It's just it's what happens. But I think the benefit of having multiple projects going at once is being able to go. I'm feeling a little, I guess burnouts or at a dead end, or just I've been bulldozing this thing straight for a while. It'd be cool to like shift focus for a while so I can kind of regroup. I think that's a beneficial thing. But yeah, I don't know. People talk about the burnout thing a lot, and I get it, but I don't know. I guess I've just finally found something to work on. And it's like, I don't know, too many projects, too little time.
But. Yeah. I sort of best describe what burnout feels like to me as like, it's not that you're not stoked about the project anymore. It's like you have just like pushed yourself to your limit and you're so exhausted and your brain is just so sort of melted that you just can't even like, I just can't even look at a reference today. Like I'm so over it that I'm just like, I need to stare at a phone screen, and then you end up staring at a phone screen, and then you do for too long, or play a game, and then all of a sudden you didn't just use one of your drawing opportunities, you used them all, and then like there goes a whole day of productivity wasted.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that is stuff that like I struggled with over my 100s. But I think that was the cool thing about that particular challenge is like it didn't matter if you were feeling burnout, you had to do it. And
yeah, right. Exactly.
Every single time when I made the choice to do it and did it, I always felt better.
Yeah.
So it was a really good lesson. And like, I don't think it's always burnout. I think it's just sometimes like, you're not feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think a mark of an amateur artist is something more, at least striving to be something more than an amateur artist, is like being able to recognize that as like, okay, I'm just not like feeling the muse today. I'm just not like feeling inspired, but I can get myself there if I just begin, and I think sometimes maybe people get that feeling and go, oh, I'm just burnt out. I need to step away. And it's like, well, maybe you just need to like press forward a little bit more. But there's the wisdom in like, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. Don't worry, I won't start singing.
But that's kind of like, I think honestly that is my, like, that's burnout is literally that. Like, it's not that you're not burnt out. It's that like you have to push through burnout sometimes. Like you do.
Yeah.
Literally burnout to me, and I don't know what a strict definition is just that you are just so exhausted that the feeling of sitting down and chilling is more satisfying than how stoked you are about your current project.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Like, that is the worst feeling ever of like sitting on my butt is way cooler than this awesome thing that I loved yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's the feeling that like I'm afraid of. Being like, no, I'm content with just coming home and watching TV. I feel good about that. I'm fulfilled. It would be easier sometimes, and sometimes it's like, yeah, that would be a nice life, but
don't lie to yourself. That's not satisfying.
No. That's right. That's not satisfying. Because I'd rather be drawing.
But it's...
Oh, I won't get tired of being cheesy. Sorry, everybody.
That's real. Man, I just went real simple with his head, and I actually really like this weird thing going on here, which is just like square for the face.
I like it too. It almost looks like a search lamp, old-fashioned security camera, like looking down at his own muscles or something.
This is, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit out of my element here, trying to figure out exactly where back muscle to, like right now I'm actually looking at a couple of different references, trying to figure out like what muscle I'm actually sort of trying to show right now. I'm trying to like, there's like this thing of just right somewhere in between, he's a robot and he's this weird thing, and he's also kind of a human, is like where these people fall that I like to draw. So it's like,
go open up a Saga. I love the Prince Robot on Saga.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that organic techno thing. But like simplified a little bit, which I think is kind of like what you're doing. Instead of like is it Geiger?
Guyver.
Yeah, the aliens artist guy or whatever, Tool, all that stuff. Really, really detailed organic stuff to get that machinery sort of a thing. But what Fiona Staples did in Saga and kind of what I see you're doing there, I think is a pretty cool. I don't know what vibe to kind of draw from to say what it is, but something's a machine by simply having a computer head, but the rest of it is very just organic and expressive. Is really cool.
Yeah, like you actually did a really good job of explaining it. Like it's kind of like it's like this for me. It's a super fun excuse to like just get to mess up anatomy. But
that's comics. A fun excuse to mess up anatomy.
Right, exactly, and that's why that's the other half of it being fun is like actually like it ends up actually being very correct anatomy in the end, but it's like playing with a weird thing and deciding like, yeah, I'll keep that pretty human. No, that's gonna be real weird and machinery.
I always loved surrealism, and I love Dali, but I also really love Magritte. I don't know if that's how you say it. That's probably just my redneck way of pronouncing it. That's Rene Magritte. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was the guy with like the roller derby gentleman with like apple floating in front of the face. And I really liked his particular version of surrealism because a lot of times it was just one thing changed. You know, it's a completely just normal thing, but then just an apple floating right in front of the face just adds so much weirdness and unsettling and, you know, almost like I think his stuff is more unsettling to me in a fun way than like Dali stuff. I love the Dali form and everything that goes into it and all of those lines and everything. But like as far as like really kind of giving me like a weird Alfred Hitchcock, like something's just weird in this picture. Magritte is just great at that subtle surrealism. But anyway, that's my talk about art. I don't know. You got any wrap-up stuff? We're getting into an hour, and I'm babbling about weird stuff.
Find a project. If you're struggling to be inspired, then like maybe you don't have something to be stoked about, so find a project.
And learn how to make that project a product.
Yep. And then draw weird square heads on super realistic anatomy. And you can call it a robot.
I love it. One of these days I'll get better about drawing on camera, and I just sit back and like watch you draw and just like talk with you, but I never end up drawing very much. I'm not very good at talking and listening and drawing. But I do want to say what's up to the chat. Our buddies Ace and Red are there hanging out with us. I do appreciate you guys coming and checking in and chilling with us. It means a lot. So thank you very much, guys. David, where should people, once again, to check out your progress on your Inktober, where should they be following that?
Get on that Instagram. Like seriously, I post on Facebook. Sometimes I forget. I'm bad about that. You're gonna get the most consistency from me, like getting on every day, replying to every comment, like that kind of thing from Instagram. But Art of Mr. Fleming on Instagram, and then Mr. David Fleming on Facebook. And then, like I said, I have a store, Envy, and then the website and all that kind of stuff is all in the link tree. Excuse me, / Mr. David Fleming. Like you Google Mr. David Fleming art, I pop up.
All right, you better pop up. All right. Scott O Green here. When I'm not here with David, you can find me on Instagram as well under Mr. Green Draws. That's mr.greendraws. And also, if you want to check out my 100 Days of Making Comics, scroll back through here. We have it separated. It'd be the Volume 3, 100 Days of Making Comics. And a lot of those episodes are also over on our Facebook account under I'd Rather Be Drawing. So check it out. Also, free comics on I'dRatherBeDrawing.com. Stuff that David has made and stuff that I've made. Probably going to have some new additions to that before too long, so keep an eye out for that content as well. But that's all I've got. Anything else, David?
I legitimately didn't. I was like, wait, you have like, you're giving away a free comic? Like you made that statement. I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
Trying. Yeah,
Yeah.
we forget that we've got some really good content over there. I know we haven't posted a whole bunch here recently because we've been so busy actually making stuff, and we don't like hire out help to run the website or anything. But yeah, there is a lot of good stuff over there, and the kind of story of I'd rather be drawing. So check it out. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good way. Let's end it there then. All right, guys, appreciate you seeing us on Tuesday instead of Sunday. Hopefully we'll get back to the regular scheduled programming, and tell your friends, share this around. You know, anyone who's into art or drawing or just inspiration in general, like tell them to get motivated, right? Peace out, guys.
Bye, everybody.